Now, staying with that story, City Power has started disconnecting illegal connections in Johannesburg, saying it has lost 3.5 million rand in just the past 2 weeks, replacing damaged substations. Dr Trevor Ngwane is the Director and Centre of Sociological Research and Practice at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. Ngwane, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. You just heard there as well, residents from Alexandra Township just complaining about the operation that City Power, this program of disconnecting illegal connections, and we understand why as well. But what do you make of just this rift between the residents and the city and the areas that they're choosing to go and turn off these illegal connections?
Thank you for having me on the program. Well, I had a lot of frustration and anger in the voices of the residents. So there are people who are suffering from what I can call energy insecurity. So they don't have a secure access to clean, safe, reliable energy. Indeed, when I did a little bit of research, I found that in Johannesburg, under the city of Johannesburg, there are 321 informal settlements without electricity, that is, which are not connected to the grid. So to me, this is a backlog. It's a failure to connect these settlements to the grid. That is why there's so much anger and frustration, because without electricity, without energy, life is very hard in modern times.
Yeah, Dr. Ngwane, I think also it's a bit of a catch-22 because as City Power is saying, they're losing hundreds of thousands of rands by the week, accumulating to millions of rands that is being lost, and also saying that only 11% of the population in Alexandra is currently paying for their electricity. And then on the one hand, when you're listening to the residents who are saying, but look, you're stripping us of our human dignity, what does one do in such a case then?
Yeah, it's a failure. It's a failure of urban planning. It's a failure of the provision of adequate shelter housing for the people. It's a failure by the government to organize sensibly and rationally urban living. Remember, Alexandra is one of the most overcrowded areas in South Africa, if not in Africa. Also, Alexandra is full of houses, formal structures, and shacks, informal settlements. So it's a mishmash of overcrowded and poorly structured and organized urban setting. So this is the challenge of the government. To go there, start attacking people, cutting off so-called illegal connections, it's just crisis management. It's not providing lasting solutions. So the government has to address the underlying factors which create the problem. And that is because people have not got secure access to energy. They have to be linked to the grid in an affordable, in a secure, and let me say, in a democratic manner.
And as we heard as well, after that program and operation was held also in Alexandra this morning, the residents this afternoon are saying, look, now that you've come and disconnected our power supply, we're actually going to reconnect it ourselves anyway. So it becomes a fruitless exercise of chasing your tail because they will go and reconnect themselves anyway, and then we're going to get government going back to go and disconnect them again.
Exactly. So that's why I say it's crisis management, it's short-sighted, it's what is called cutting off your nose to spite your face. There are so many ways this problem could be addressed. Even in the short term, City Power could provide what we call solar-powered microgrids, provide people with solar panels, which don't need connecting to the grid immediately to alleviate, to address the plight of the people. These are human beings. These are working class and poor people who have a right to save energy. These are the victims of apartheid yesterday. We expect that the government of national liberation will address their problems. will get rid of the injustices, inequalities of the past. But this is not happening. Instead, the same government is blaming the victim, scapegoating them, blaming them for their suffering. They never had electricity under apartheid. That is why Alexandra was called the Dark City. Today, they still don't have electricity. And when some of them in the shacks start connecting themselves, they get the hammer, they get smashed. So this is unfair. It is unjust.
And Dr. Ngwane, as you're speaking of getting the hammer as well, when we were watching that operation being conducted in Alexandra this morning, we could also see some of the damage to the property, to some of the houses, to some of the informal settlements there as well. And residents complaining to say, look, you're here to disconnect this illegal connection. However, you're also causing damage, the manner in which they were conducted as well, in some instances where we could see properties and roofs caving in. And of course, these are very fragile establishments as well, because they are in informal settlements. But the manner in which it was done, what do you also make of that? Does that also take you back to our history?
Exactly. That is why I call this whole thing, it's energy racism. It's a spillover, a continuation of racist and classist, even, patriarchal, gender negative attitudes from the past, from the days of colonialism, of racial capitalism. People must be treated with dignity. Remember also that it's not only the infrastructure of the people, of those spaza shop owners, which breaks down. It's City Power's own electricity infrastructure, because instead of upgrading it, instead of maintaining it, it's spending money, sending police, sending its workers to cut cables, which we all know will be up and reconnected the next day. So actually, the consequence is the deterioration of our energy, electricity infrastructure in the long term.
Dr. Ngwane, thank you so much for your insights and your time this afternoon. That was Dr. Trevor Ngwane, who is the Director at the Center of Sociological Research and Practice at the University of Johannesburg.